Hey, it's Jennifer from Quiltin', Stitchin' and Kitties. One of my nice subscribers asked if I could possibly do a Kawandi style quilt where we machine stitch it instead of hand stitching. And I said, sure, let's give it a try. So that's what we're going to do today. So I'm just doing a small, started out as a 10-inch square on the back, and then I am going to fold the edges down about 1/4 of an inch. So I cut my batting 1/2 an inch smaller because the batting is going to tuck underneath that folded edge after I ironed it. Then you take the batting and you tuck it underneath the folded edge and make sure it's laying nice and flat to start. Then you pick up your first piece that you want to put on it, and you are going to have to press the edge on both sides, because what you're going to do is you're going to actually stitch all those 3 layers together, and you're not going to put a binding, and so you need them all nice and flat. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and put the piece on. I've clipped it on this side. You can pin or clip or whatever helps you hold it well, and then you can start stitching. Or you can go ahead and put a whole border all the way around the block before you start stitching. It's sort of up to you. I think I'm going to put at least the start of the border. So I picked up my next piece, and because it's going to also be along the bottom, I pressed along the bottom edge up 1/4 of an inch, and I pressed the edge that's going to cover the piece that's already there under 1/4 of an inch. And then I lay those 2 pieces together, making sure that the edges, I'm going to put a little pin, then I can lift it up. The edges are still staying nice and even with the edge of the block. Then I'm going to take one more piece. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to be folding the right side because I'm moving counterclockwise. Oh, sorry, clockwise. I'm moving clockwise on mine. So I'm going to put the right piece and the bottom of the edge, and I'm going to see how those fit. Now I've got a little extra fabric on this piece when I go to lay this one over. So I can trim this one down, or I can shorten this one up. Just whatever you want to do at the time. So the hardest part of this is getting started. Once you get going, honestly, it does get easier. So I'm going to trim a little bit, and I'll be right back. Okay, I have folded under all the edges that I need to. I did in fact have to fold under this outside edge here also, because it's going to be hitting the side. I've pinned it in place. I've got tons of pins, so I can start stitching if I want to. So I think I'll do that. I'll go ahead and start stitching. So I'm going to use a really big stitch length. I've got a little over 3, close to 3 1/4, maybe even 3 1/2. And yes, I am going to back stitch at the beginning just to make sure I don't lose my stitches. And I'm going ahead and going 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of the fabric. And I'm just taking my pins out, pushing everything as I go. And clips might be easier. You know, I think I'll try clips on the next side. So I'm stitching this along. Got a little tiny bubble, so I'm just going to pick up my fabric and I'm going to adjust it so that little bubble disappears. And I just flipped up my fabric, so press it down there. Okay, and I'm just about to the corner, so I got to make sure I don't run over my pin. I've got right in the corner. I'm going to come down to 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to leave my needle in, lift my presser foot, turn, presser foot back down, and start stitching. And I'm only going to go a little ways because I'm not sure how far I want to put the next piece on. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a couple more stitches, and then I'll just back stitch like 2 stitches and cut my thread. Okay, so there's the stitching so far. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put pieces all along this bottom. And I'll show you one more time the folding. So just go into your pile of scraps or whatever, and I kind of like this flower right here. So, and it looks like it's kind of a nice length. So I'm just going to rough cut it about to the size that I want. And then I'm going to go ahead, and I have to have the bottom edge is going to be folded under, because that's going to be touching the outside of the project. And the right side has to also be folded under, because it's going to be covering the previous piece. If it's going to be covered over, you don't have to turn under your edges. So I've got this. I'm going to flip it about like that. Let's stick a pin in. I think to stick a pin right on the very edge where I'm going to start stitching, and then another pin a little further down. Okay, so I have folded under this edge. I folded under the bottom edge, and I could continue my stitching along. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lay out all the way across and all the way around the first row, and then I will be back. Okay, I've pinned all my fabric all the way around the entire block, and now I'm going to continue stitching from where I left off before. So I'm going to put a couple of back stitches just to make sure I don't lose my edges. And then I'm going to continue at a 1/4 inch all the way around. Now it's going along. That first border is really the hardest, and it takes the most time. So don't get frustrated as you're thinking, oh my God, this is going to take me forever to do it this way. So just make sure you don't run over any of your pins. And when you get to your corner, stop at a 1/4 inch. Lift your presser foot, bring it back down, and then just keep on going. And it's moving along much better now. Let me move these pins over here. They're a little closer. And like I said, clips are good too. I just grab the pins without even thinking. But I do like the little one. Okay, I just hit something. Sounds like a needle. Broke. I'll be back. Okay, sure enough, I had a hidden pin. My needle hit it and it broke. And this is the first time I've changed my needle on this machine, even though it's over 6 months old, which is kind of surprising. So I had to go back and look in the book, except it isn't in the book. But what's different about the Juki is you don't thread it from the front, you thread it from the side. But I figured it out. And I went ahead and stitched, and now I am 3/8 inch away from my first line of stitching. So you have to decide how far apart you want your stitching to be. Do you want it to be a 1/4 inch, 3/4 inch, whatever you want it to be? And I've decided I'm going to do 3/8. So you get to that point, you stop with your needle down, and you keep going. So what's going to happen is this is going to become a spiral of stitching, getting smaller and smaller and going towards the center. So you just continue on. Make sure you've got a nice place on your throat plate where you're going to put your stitching, or you can put your stitching the width of your presser foot if that's easier for you. And remember, this is not supposed to be perfect. And originally Kawandis are all hand done, so we're not looking for perfection. Now, when do you stop stitching and put on the next layer of fabric? You do that before you get too close to your last edge of fabric. So as you're stitching around, you will probably get at least 1 or 2 rounds of stitching before you have to add, but it just depends on how big your fabric is. So when you are looking at your fabric, like right now, I've got well over an inch to be stitched on. So I know I've got at least 1, maybe 2 rounds going on it. So if you look at it and say, okay, the next round I'm not going to have fabric, then you need to place your next round of fabric. You can start anywhere you want. It doesn't really matter. It can be any size that you want. You can go from rectangles to squares to whatever. But just make sure that you do start putting that fabric down before you start stitching, or what's just going to happen is you're going to get to the place and there's not enough fabric to stitch. So let me stitch this and show you what it looks like and be back in a few minutes. Okay, I'm getting really close to some edges now, so I stopped. But notice how you're getting a spiral on your stitches, and that's going to continue all the way until you get to your center. So what do you do next? You go ahead and pick up more pieces. You lay them down. The only folding you have to do is if there's an edge that is going to be over another piece of fabric, so that's typically on your right side and on the bottom. And then you just keep going and going and going. And I'm going to go ahead and finish this. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll be back when it's all done. No guarantee when that'll be. Well, I finished the Kawandi. I'm going to show you the back first to show you all the stitching, and then turn it over, show you the front. I think it came out pretty cute. I'm not sure if it's worth the effort, but if you've got a lot of scraps and you want to do things with it, you can make this any size that you want. I don't know, it seems like it took an awful long time, but then any type of stitching like this does take a long time, whether you do it by machine or you do it by hand. But the K fabric sure accents it. So I am happy with the way it turned out. I think I wish I'd made it a little bigger now, but maybe just a wall hanging or just something to put on the table. But if you have any questions, please let me know. It's good to see you, and I hope this satisfied the people or person who wanted to see Kawandi by machine. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you as always for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't, and let me know if there's something you want to see. I'll be back real soon. Take care.